So today is Mazingira Day, and you can see that it's a day to plant trees. And the theme for today's Mazingira Day 2025 is citizen-centric tree growing and environment stewardship. This year's celebration calls all Kenyans to take active responsibility for environment by planting trees, cleaning up schools and communities, and promoting sustainable practices. Have you planted trees, ladies and gentlemen? Because the government today told us that we should plant trees. And one of the agendas of the government today was to plant fruit trees. And the government officials went to their former primary schools to do the exercise. And the agreement was that every school to plant 2,000 trees. And, you know, in this country, we have 35,000 primary and secondary schools. And they are saying that the government insisted that out of these 35,000 primary and secondary schools and private schools, we needed each school to plant 2,000 trees today. And also, the trees were being bought, and this is where I have a problem. The trees were being bought at 150 shillings per tree. So if you multiply 150 shillings per tree times 2,000 per school, it means that today alone we would have planted 70 million trees. Now let's do the math. 70 million trees multiply by 150 shillings per tree. Do you know how much money has been spent? And where are we getting these trees from? And who is pocketing this money? That's my question. If you're buying a tree at 150 per tree, and you know, and I know most of you listeners out there, you've planted trees. Not all trees can go for 150 shillings. Is there someone who is going to benefit? I'm calling it the big tree rip-off. Because clearly someone is being ripped off for paying 150 per tree, even if it's a fruit tree, and you're buying them in bulk. Surely it cannot be, it's not that serious. And the President, William Ruto, said today that he plans to grow 15 billion trees. 15 billion trees. And they are saying, the government is saying that since they took over in 2022, they have planted 1.06 trees. Do you see those trees planted? 1.06 billion trees have already been planted. The government seeks to plant 15 billion trees. And today alone, if the exercise went as it was inspired, it should be close to 70 million trees planted at 1,150 shillings per tree. I don't know. You do the math. Tell me how much have people made today. But what we are saying, please plant trees. My only problem is that sounds like a big ripoff. I'm not saying you shouldn't plant trees. Let's plant trees, but let's have a manageable cost. You cannot plant trees for 150 per tree, 70 million trees, and in every school. And then you say that Apple, kuna the big tree rip-off, and we don't know who is ripping who off. So, funnily enough, we are saying, but happy Mazingira Day after planting your trees. And I don't mean you plant trees at night. You plant trees during the day. You remember, panda miti mchana, usipande miti usiku. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean. Let me dive into something very interesting. Remember the former Migori governor, Okoth Obado, the gentleman who has been undergoing corruption case in the highest appellate court in this country. And now today, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have decided to sell the property of former governor Okoth Obado and the former head of treasury at the city county of Nairobi, Stephen Oganga Osiro, through a public auction held yesterday. The auctioned properties are located in Nairobi, form part of 10 assets earmarked for disposal following the court orders in Anti-Corruption and Economics Crime Suit number 20 of 2018. and number 10 of 2021. Now the properties sold and their realized values are as follows. Number 1, Riara apartment number FF3 3-bedroom on LR 330 stroke 140 Nairobi block 14 to 47 was sold at 14 million. Greenspan Estate apartment 3-bedroom sold at 6.9 million. Green Park Estate 2-bedroom apartment sold at 6.7 million. Green Park Estate Maisonette sold at 11 million, and Loresho Ridge Estate Townhouse was sold at 31 million. My question is, who bought all these things? Did how many PR these gentlemen are playing on us? Because in this economy, if someone can just wake up and buy all those properties, but they're saying they were sold today in the morning. There are other properties which will be up for auction again. I think this is just part of the larger Okoth Obado empire, the things he looted in the county, and looting is a very bad thing. The remaining properties to be sold are still situated in Kisumu and Migori, are scheduled for auction on Thursday 16th of this month. And the commission invites members of the public to participate in the exercise. Wewe kama una pesa, kuna form. Just go and buy Okoth Obado's property, corruption property, which he had accumulated. And people are asking that, are you telling us that Okoth was the only one who was corrupt, and people can just raise money like this to buy all this property at the fall of the hammer? Ama ni sisi tu, we are the broke Kenyans. Some people are not broke, but what I'm trying to say is that, ladies and gentlemen, Okoth Obado has lost some of his property, and it has been sold through public auction. So do not steal. The moral of this story: do not steal from your county. If you are a governor, you are a public figure, tafadhali, just get used to what you earn. Do not rob the county. Do not milk the county dry and because it's short-lived. And Okoth Obado has lost all those properties to the auction, and we say the auction was held yesterday and the properties have been sold. So the next auction is coming on 16th of this month. So some things you better not try them, because surely it's just a curse to steal from the other people. We say politics is a game of numbers. If you know, you know. Politics is a game of numbers. And whatever happens in politics, there are no permanent enemies or permanent friends. What we have in politics is permanent interests. And you can see when the President, William Samoei Ruto, decided to call his government the broad-based government, and I quote my good friend Barack Muluka, who says that this thing called broad-based government is basically a broad-based conspiracy against the nation. I don't know what Barack Muluka says so, but he says so. But now, something interesting have been happening. Raila Odinga, after the Gen Z protest, joined the government, and of course there was a broad-based government. And now KANU Supremo Gideon Moi have been having a meeting with the president, and now the broad-based government has become the broader-based government now, because it seems that it's a big house with everyone now is in. So the question is, do you think that politics in Kenya is politics or politricks, and that have we seen everything we need to see, or we haven't seen everything yet? Because you see, in politics, we say even some people in the opposition, which is now meeting, and Kalonzo Musyoka has an NDC at Uhuru Park today, some people in opposition might still join the broad-based government, and some people in the government might decamp to the broad-based opposition. So politics is a game of numbers. It's something which you do not countenance and think that it is what you see. Deals are cut at night, others during the day, and former enemies become friends during the morning. So If you do not know, just know that things have really shifted. The political space is shifting every single day. So if you're left outside, just find yourself. But the question to ask is, are Kenyans going to benefit from all these political gymnastics and theatrics? Or is this going to save us from all this new and future development? What we can say is that politics is a game of numbers, and may the best man win, and let's see what happens. The Nobel Peace Prize has just been announced. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the American president, Donald we call them DJT, or Donald Trump, had been campaigning religiously to be the winner of this year's Nobel Peace Prize. And he was saying that he has stopped many wars in the world. You know, I think Trump has a mental issue sometimes, because surely, how can you say that? But the Nobel Peace Prize was held today in the morning, and it has been won by the Venezuelan president, opposition, not president, Venezuelan opposition leader and democratic activist, Maria Corina Machado. The Norwegian Nobel Committee said Machado was honored for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. So, the chairman of the Norwegian Nobel Peace Committee in Oslo said that the winner, and it's not Donald Trump, it's of course Maria Corina Machado. Maria Corina Machado is an opposition leader from Venezuela, and it's congratulations, Madam Machado Corina, because it's good to always have some people who do good for the country and for the world receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And away from the Nobel Peace Prize, today, there has been a debate ranging in Kenya about what we call the tea debate. The tea planters and the senator from Kisii Okenyuri recently said that the Kisii farmers of tea are getting a raw deal, and they're receiving very little bonuses as compared to people from Mount Kenya region who have been earning a lot of money from the tea bonuses. And then the debate, so I call it the debate, the tea tasting debate, because you know how tea is graded. The Kenyan tea, if you go to the Mombasa tea auction, you'll see that, which is the second largest auction in the world. If you go for the tea auction, you find that there are people who are basically employed to taste the tea. And when they taste, they can tell you the quality of that tea. So now the government is saying that since many people are complaining, and they'll come up with a scientific method of testing tea, because now and to replace the tangs, because the guys who replace, you don't drink, you just feel it in your mouth and feel the taste and then spit it out, and they know which is the better tea, which is better quality. But you remember that tea depends on the soil you've planted it and how you've taken care of it throughout, and when after harvesting and the process of drying it and all that. So tea is a very interesting plant when you're going to be paid for it, because the taster's tongue determines how much you're going to be paid per kg. Whether your tea is quality or low quality, it's graded higher or lower. So the politics of tea and the tonguing of tea. So it's not the other tongues you guys are used to, my friend. Just know that politics of tea is very interesting. And away from the politics of tea, the Jimmy Kibaki has presented new evidence of claiming that Jacob Ochola, the man who claims to be Kibaki's son, that he had inherited his other father, so he cannot inherit Mwai Kibaki. So And it's a very interesting case. So we want to see how far the Kibaki inheritance case goes, because Jimmy Kibaki has presented a new evidence that Ochola Jacob had inherited his other father. So he should not be included in Kibaki's will or to be given some of the rightful share of property. So it's interesting to see the political fights. It's interesting to see that the country is pulling together, but also we can see that beyond that, it's good to put your house in order, because in case of death, you can see what happens. People come from the woodworks to claim, this was my son, this was my what. So we always want you to be more clearer in your engagement with with your better half, so that you put everything in the way it should be. And away from that, if you follow me very closely, I, CEO Charles Otieno, you'll know that I'm a diehard supporter of two teams, Gor Mahia and, of course, the great Manchester United. Now, somewhere in Congo, and I repeat, somewhere in Congo, you can't make these things up, a police station in Congo uses Man United shirt as prison uniforms. My friend, we'll go to Congo, we'll ban that place. You cannot use the great Manchester United team shirts as a prison uniform. My friend, what's wrong with you guys from Congolese? Tell us, is it true? Now, away from Congolese issues and the drama and the misuse of my great team's Man United shirts, there's a court case, a very interesting court case happened in Nairobi the other day. A Nairobi man, 21 years old, threatened to murder the mother of a delayed supper and set her house on fire. Hey, what we will see with some young people. This reminds me, by the way, of my good friend DJ Pinye. I had an interview, and DJ Pinye is one of the finest DJs in this country. When I was interviewing him on my other program on KTN the other time, he told me that when he was a young boy, he burnt down their house. And I was like, wow, what kind of anger is this? How can someone burn down the house they're living in? Now, away from Pinye, my friend, now let's move to this Njiru man. A man in Njiru has his case threatened in court for burning the house. Samuel Mushangi, 21, allegedly issued death threats to his mother, Catherine Wawira, at her home in Njiru sub-county on October 3rd. Mushangi is also facing charges of malicious damage of property. That day, Mushangi reportedly returned home at around 6 p.m. and demanded supper, but his mother told him the food was not ready. In response, Mushangi went berserk and threatened to kill his mother, a threat which led to a confrontation. Wawira, however, managed to escape unhurt to the neighbor's home. The accused then seized the opportunity to set the house on fire. Her mother raised an alarm and the accused fled when neighbors rushed to help put out the fire. A bed, mattress, 3 blankets, a chair, a table, and utensils, all valued as 50,000 belonging to his mother, were reduced to ashes. The man was later arrested and taken to court. Now, my question is, you know the issues we deal with as parents, and you know you've seen many kids of age basically still living with parents. And the biggest problem, and I know you know, my dear listeners, that if you go to Buruburu, you go to Langata, you find boys of 30 years still living with their mothers. And they are not going anywhere. They are still either in excuse or their bedrooms, and they bring their girlfriends home, and they still expect their mothers to cook for them. What should people do to kick adult children to go and fend for themselves? Because look, this boy decides at 21 that he is burning the mother's house because he found the mother cooking, but the food was not ready at 6 o'clock, and he expects to be given food. What can we do? Do you know a man who is old enough to have started his own family and is staying with his parents' home? Do you know a girl who is old enough who has refused to leave the mother's home because They are still dependent on their mother, yet they do nothing. Have you known that in Nairobi there are many families who are struggling with adult children who do not want to get out of home because they are thinking they need to be cared for, they need to be taken care of, but they are not working hard. How do we kick adult children out of their homes? What strategies should someone use? Please hit our social media pages and tell us. Call us and tell us, do you know such a person who is 30, 35, 40, still living with their parents? Do you know people who are still served with their parents, who still expect their parents to give them pocket money at an older age? And what should be done for these people who behave like kids but they are adults? And away from the people in Nairobi, kids or men who are grown men living in their mother's homes and father's homes, another interesting thing happened, of course, in Nairobi. A Nairobi man also was recently charged with willful infecting wife with HIV and refused to use protection. So this young guy was taken to court by the wife because he knew he was HIV positive and insisted, and they got married and did not disclose the situation, the condition to the wife. So he was charged with failing to disclose his status to partner and deliberately exposing her to the virus. It is alleged that despite being aware of his HIV status, Mark failed to disclose this to his partner and deliberately exposed her. The complainant told investigations that he routinely avoided discussions about HIV testing when she brought the subject. Following the birth of their baby, the complainant began experiencing painful rashes under her armpits. When she shared her concerns with the husband, he allegedly dismissed them and promised to buy her herbal remedies, saying it was similar. He had similar conditions. Unable to bear the discomfort, the woman sought medical attention, where she was advised to return to further testing and accompanied by her husband. However, the husband became aggressive, assaulted her, and after learning that the doctor had recommended his presence, the complainant reported the matter to Huruma Police Station, and investigations were launched under an OB, and the suspect was later traced and arrested and was given a cash bail of 50. The case will happen on October 23rd, and the hearing begin in February 2026. Gentlemen, why would you infect someone with HIV knowingly? People are so evil out here, man, because you do not want to take responsibility. It's important for you, every person, to take responsibility. The way the kids are forcing their fathers or their mothers to cook for them by force. PSS today went, and the CSS went to plant trees in their local to primary schools. Some of them should do much better, because if you look at the schools they have not improved an inch. So I'm always asking myself, why can't the government officials be at the forefront of rehabilitating the schools they went to? Because the primary schools they went to are in bad shape, Clearly, it would be much better if they would have spent a bit of money in improving the learning conditions of the former schools they were in. Please do harambe to those schools you went to, because sometimes it's a shame when you go back to plant a tree and the school looks as bad as you left it. Just do some windows on those schools. Otherwise, what kind of leadership are you offering if you can't start at home? Leadership starts from home. Leadership starts at the school you went to. Make them model schools where the younger kids who are now coming in through the system can see that you have actually helped them develop that school to a better level, to a better learning environment. But when you go up there to plant those 2,000 trees, and it looks a pale shadow of what it was, it shows us of what kind of character you are. A man is judged by the character, but not by what he says. So let's see a proper change next time when you go to plant trees in those schools, and they shouldn't look as bad as they do. Another thing which happened this week is journalist Larry Madao the other day had an altercation with some guys on the road, and one of the guys who was driving wrong side incidentally was an MP of one of the city constituencies. And my take, and I support what musician Octopizzo says, Kibra people should make better decision next time to start registering ndio hii kiburi ishe. When you say peleka kwa Ruto hiyo takataka, let me tell you, a leader, we shall judge you by the company you keep. So a leader is expected to be someone who really understands what he's doing. You cannot allow your driver or someone who is driving you to abuse people and call people takataka and those sorts of things. It shows how the depth of how you the shallowness actually is not even the shallowness of how people you walk around think. Because surely, how do you say, my friend, that hiyo peleka hiyo takataka kwa Ruto? So I found it very disgusting that people can behave in a manner to suggest that they don't care when they're driving on the wrong side of the road, and when they're asked to do the right thing, they are very abusive and dismissive. So Kenyans, there are no two kinds of rules for the have-nots and the haves. So let's just obey the traffic rules. Let's drive on the right side of the road, especially because we've had too many accidents happen in this country, and it is sad that some people still do not understand why there are too many accidents. If you can drive on the right and wrong side of the road and still say hiyo ni takataka, I tell you, you need to go back to school. The Catholic Church in Kenya has introduced a new wine, my friends. The Catholic Church in Kenya has introduced a new brand of altar wine, simply labeled Mass Wine, to restore reverence and exclusivity to Holy Communion. Yani, these Kenyans of ours, it says in Tulevi sana, that we have been even drinking the Mass wine, which was available outside the confines of the church. This follows a concern that the previous altar wine had become too common, appearing in bars, hotels, and supermarkets. You Kenyans, you have not distinguished between altar wine and the wine you are taking to the bars. Mukimba hizo wimbo za Catholic, unihurumie nani Bwana, but you are drinking wine in So the Nyeri Archbishop Anthony Muheria said that the new wine is certified by Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops and is not for public sale. It will be distributed exclusively to dioceses and used in all Catholic masses across the country. The wine is being sourced from South Africa, Latsville Vineyards, and was officially launched at the National Prayer Day in Subukia,